You know, I only realized as I was recording this that this is going to go up on April 1st. No, this is not an April Fool's joke. I really did grade some video games. So a few years ago, there was a video that went incredibly viral by Carl Jobst, who I watch religiously. He made an expose on WATA Games and Heritage auctions, and I completely support what he said. Basically, he discovered that there was a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff going on that was basically being used to inflate the value of graded video games. Now, graded games have actually been a thing for years before WATA Games showed up, but they showed up and started just cranking up the prices so much in collaboration with Heritage Auctions, to the point where a lot of games were going for hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars if they were sealed and graded. It was just nuts. Now, because of that video, graded prices have plummeted down to just a fraction of what they used to be, to the point now where a lot of graded games you can get for just a few $100. Even some heavy hitters don't go for more than 1,000 or 2,000, which for casual game collectors is still a lot of money, but it's a lot closer to what most people think that they should go for. Now, most gamers don't even see the appeal of graded video games anyway. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why you would never ever put a game in a slab of plastic. I mean, most gamers are gamers. They have video games so that they can play them. Games are meant to be played. That's the number one reason people collect games, is at the very least to have a copy on their shelf for them to play whenever they want. How are you ever supposed to play one of these things? And speaking of these things, this is a graded game. Graded by who? Who did this? What mood were they in that day? What kind of microscope were they using? What kind of ruler to check all the sides and stuff like that? You know, my point in all that is grades can fluctuate. This is a 9.8A graded copy of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Someone somewhere arbitrarily decided that that is what this game is. They just came up with that all on their own, and you're just going to have to take their word on it that that is what this grade is. But there's actual reasons why you would want to actively not grade games. For example, older games that require like a battery or have capacitors in them, those kinds of things can leak over time. And if you grade a game, you're actually eventually going to have a problem of the stuff inside of the box leaking out and destroying it. So even if you have a perfect specimen, it'll eventually get worn down anyway, so what's the point? There's plenty of other reasons, but the gist of it is graded games in general are a stigma. And I get it. I totally get it. I've been on that train of thought for years and years and years. I've collected thousands of games over my life with the intention of, at the very least, being able to play them whenever I want. I totally get it. Graded games are not for everyone. They're not for most people. They are a niche, and most people who think of graded game collectors think of them as hurting the collecting market. I totally get it. But I've been collecting some games complete in box for years. Look at all those Pokemon games behind me. I have every single Pokemon game ever made, including spin-offs, complete in box. As well as a few other games that I care about as well. And the reason that I collect them complete in box is because, to me, it's exactly the same as when they were first put on sale in a store X amount of years ago. So some of those games behind me are 25 years old or close to it. So it's amazing to me that you can have games like Pokemon Yellow here that, for all intents and purposes, is exactly the same as when it was released on a store shelf, except it just doesn't have the seal on it anymore. My favorite video game of all time is Pokemon Silver, and the best copy I've got of it is this complete in box copy, and it's very damaged, but I love it. You know, it's, again, my favorite video game of all time. Not even my favorite Pokemon game, my favorite video game. And it's so nice to have it complete in box, but it would be nicer to me if I had a copy sealed. And if it was sealed, I may as well put it in a plastic slab to help protect it. You know what I would give to have a sealed copy of Silver? Very unlikely I'll ever get that these days. The sealed copies of Pokemon games are going for a ridiculous amount of money. Forget graded, just sealed. Like a sealed copy of Silver is like $1,000 or more. No, thank you. Look, I'm not an idiot. I know that you don't have to put a game in a graded case in order to keep it protected. Look, again, go in my copy of Silver. Look, it is in this nice plastic protector, which helps protect it a little bit from the elements and from UV rays from the window and stuff. I have this for every single one of my games. I've got this copy of Pokemon Yellow here that was signed by Veronica Taylor, the voice of Ash Ketchum. It's in a plastic case as well. I'm not stupid, guys. I know how to take good care of my games. But that being said, there's just something about graded games that I like, and I ended up getting graded copies of 4 games. And to be clear, these are 4 games that I bought myself. 3 of them, pretty much everyone except for The Legend of Zelda, I went to the store and picked out copies off the shelf, and I tried to get the nicest copies I could. This one, I made the mistake of ordering online, so when it arrived, it already had a few micro tears in the plastic, which is why it just got a 9.8A rating. The letter rating for WATA is for the seal quality, so since there were micro tears in this, that means that it would never have gotten a perfect score, or even close to it. So this is exactly what I expected from this. This game is my wife's favorite game, and I decided to do this for her so that she could have a copy of her own. This is, of course, Pokemon Legends Arceus, which ended up with a 9.6A+, which is, again, exactly what I would expect. These next 2 games, though, I am very happy and very excited for them. So we got Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet, and they both graded 9.8A++, which, if you know anything about WATA, is as high as you could ever realistically hope to get. Can you get a 10? Yes, theoretically, but it is incredibly difficult to do so. And you know what? The grade doesn't actually mean all that much to me, because I just wanted copies of these games that were exactly as I found them on the store shelf. Again, I went to Best Buy and got Pokemon Scarlet off a shelf. I paid for it, I took it home, and I shipped it off to WATA. But it was important for me to get a copy of this game that I myself got, that I myself saw on a store shelf, and now it is entombed in a slab of plastic, and if you will, just in such a way that it will always be exactly like it was when it was on a store shelf. And there's just something magical to me about that. There's something appealing about knowing that this is that game that I bought in the year 2023. And I think that it'll be fun to hold on to these and look back on them 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now and remember, yeah, that's how I got them, off a store shelf in this exact condition. Now, you're probably wondering why I went with WATA Games of all companies. I mean, weren't they the ones that Carl Jobst was saying were inflating the market and making it just awful for everyone? Yes. Yes, he did. Although I will point out that in his follow-up video, he showed off quite a few of his own graded games that he himself collects. He's not against graded game collectors. I'm not against graded game collectors. I understand that most people who get these get them because they want a nice copy of a game, either to, you know, pull out every once in a while and just admire it as if it was brand new, or to put on their shelf and collect dust, which isn't that much different from most game collectors. They just are in a completely different money bracket than we are, that's all. I went with WATA Games because they were cheapest. That's it. That's pretty much it. WATA was the cheapest grader when I was looking into getting these games graded. That was the only reason why I went with them. CGC is a bit more expensive, and I don't even know if VGA grades Switch games right now. They might, but I don't know. But aside from just being the cheapest grading company, WATA has gotten their act together quite well over the last few years, which they would have had to in order to recover from the Carl Jobst video. Their grading is very consistent right now, to the point where when I shipped these in, I actually predicted the grades for each of them pretty darn closely. Their grades have gotten a lot more consistent, to the point where you could send something in and have a really good guess as to what grade you're going to get, which is what you should expect from a grading company. I mean, so many people send Pokemon cards off to PSA and have a pretty good idea of what their grade is that they'll be receiving. So you wouldn't send everything into PSA expecting a PSA 10. You would have a reasonable expectation of what card will get what grade. And that's what happened here. And the most important update that they've done is they have started posting population reports. So every console that they've ever graded, every grade they ever handed out for a game is now publicly available for you to look at, so you can know exactly what the population is for a game that you're looking at. Not Switch games. They haven't actually posted population reports for Switch games yet, but they've done it for most of the other consoles. This could be either the best copy of Pokemon Scarlet on the planet, or it could be tied for the worst. I have no way of knowing. And again, I don't care. I did not grade these games as an investment. I didn't look at this and like, oh, it's a 9.8A. I'm only going to get like $100 for that. It's such a waste of money. No, I am never selling these games. I picked these 4 games specifically because they're some of my favorites of all time. And they're ones that I could get right now, still sealed in good condition. Breath of the Wild I consider to be the greatest video game of all time, and it just means a lot for me to have a copy of it still sealed, protected, so that 50 years from now I'll be able to look back on it and said, yeah, the greatest game of all time, and I still have a copy of it brand spanking new. Again, Pokemon Legends Arceus, my wife's favorite game of all time, and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are some of my favorite Pokemon games of all time. I think I will safely call Gen 9 my second favorite generation of all time, only after Gen 2. Again, what are the odds I'm ever going to get a graded copy of this thing, or even a sealed copy of my favorite video game? So may as well get sealed copies of my second favorite Pokemon games, and here we are. Again, I got these because I care about these games, and I want to have nice, good condition, brand new specimens so I could put them on my shelf and enjoy looking at them, and constantly remind myself these are my favorite games, and show off to other people these are my favorite games. And look at that, it's a 5-year-old game, brand spanking new. Well, 6 years old now, you know. And you know, it'll never grow old. It'll be in here protected and loved by me. Another reason to get graded video games, and this is probably going to be a niche reason, I have this copy of Pokemon Y, which is sealed, I think. Camera doesn't really want to focus, but you can maybe see the extra plastic on the top and bottom. It's really loose. But the general consensus of everyone I asked is that this is a real seal, but it's been very exposed to the elements. It's very loose on the case. I think it's real, but you know what would help to prove that it's real? Getting a graded copy, because these companies only grade copies of games with a real seal on it. So could I send this off and get it graded? I guess I could, come to think of it. I don't know why I didn't think of that before now. Honestly, I was just thinking of maybe picking up a graded copy. It might be cheaper. But my point is that this is probably a real seal on this copy of Y. The copy of Y is real, but I have no way of knowing if the seal around it is real or not. And a graded copy would prove it beyond doubt. It would not be up for question. Every single one of these games has a real seal on it, so if I had a copy of Y among them, then that would solve that problem. So with that in mind, with these 4 games here, would I ever get more graded games? Well, maybe. Pokemon Y and Pokemon Silver. If I could get these graded, that would be amazing. I wouldn't even want the best grade possible. I would be happy with, I don't know, a WADA 8.5 B+ rating, which if anyone knows anything about WADA, that's a really bad grade. Again, Y might be new, I don't know. Silver is just going to be so expensive, man. So that's kind of my biggest hindrance with sealed games, is the ones that I really want are expensive. Basically, Pokemon Y and Silver are the 2 biggest ones I want. Maybe the original Final Fantasy VII on PlayStation 1. If I'm lucky and find them for good prices, then I might do it. But I gotta tell you guys, it was a lot of fun getting these graded myself. It means more to me that these are copies of the games that I bought in a store rather than copies that I bought off of eBay for the grades that they are. It was fun going through the process of getting these graded, and I wouldn't get that same thrill from just buying games that are already graded and have been for years. And I have a hard time imagining ever finding other games that I'll love so much that I'll say, yes, I want a copy of that forever. When it comes down to it, I'm just not a graded games collector, or even a sealed games collector, or even a complete in box collector. Yes, I have graded video games now. I have complete in box copies of games. I even have probably a sealed video game. But when it comes down to it, I am just a game collector. That's all I am. And I just get whatever I feel like. So if I feel like getting a pretty much the best possible copy you could ever hope for Pokemon Scarlet, I'll get it. Or if I feel like picking up a copy of it used on eBay for $5 later, I'll get it like that. You know, I just get whatever I feel like. And when it comes down to it, that's all that matters when you collect video games. So thanks everyone for watching. I really hope that I was able to provide a bit of an extra voice to this conversation. I am expecting a lot of people to dislike this video just because I got a few graded games. I completely understand. Again, I was in that camp myself for years. I've only recently changed it. But I hope that you guys at least have a different perspective now than you did when you came into this. So that'll do it for now. Thanks everyone for watching. Now I gotta find a place in this room to put these games. These take up a lot bigger footprint than I expected. Okay, later everybody. Have a good day.